Good morning, everybody. This is Grant from State of the Spark, and if you can't tell, I am super pumped to be in my little studio here in the office, man. Super pumped. We've had a great show for you today. We're actually going to cover my 5 key principles that I live by. I live by these principles when I am taking a new paradigm, and I got a confession to make, and that confession is how I'm winning life and how I'm really not. Let's be honest. Let's land that plane. And so I'm going to confess to you kind of how I've been dropping the ball. And I want to share that with you because that's just my life learnings. And I want to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes. So I'm going to share with you the 5 principles I've committed to living by to take my next level. And I want you to take your next level with me. So we're going to cover that today. We're also going to cover a secret hidden 135-year-old Van Gogh bookmark. We're also going to be covering how scientists are using galaxies as magnifiers. You know it, but you know, before any of that, the most important part of the day, the only important part of the day is morning cup of gratitude. We're going to actually share a warm cup of gratitude together before we get into all the other craziness. So I am super pumped. Grab your cup of coffee, grab whatever it is you're journaling or grateful for, and let's share together what we're grateful for. Let's do it. So I'm grateful for several things today. I'm grateful for several things so much that I had to write it down. That's right. I'm grateful for a safe and fulfilling trip. You know, we started our road trip, for those who don't know. We started our road trip, went to South Carolina to basically have a celebration of life funeral service for our grandmother, Ricky, in South Carolina. It was beautiful. We had a great time. We got to spend time with family. It was extraordinary. I'm grateful for that. But suddenly we realized family might need help in Kansas City transitioning to a life without Ricky. So we asked ourselves, well, did we build our business? Did we build our life? What's in place? Do we have good employees? And the answer to all that is yes. We built a remote business. We don't have kids. We have investment properties. We have awesome employees. So why not go and make ourselves available? So we just got in the car and drove to Kansas City. It was a safe trip. It was a productive trip. I got to actually work with Glenn for some of his business matters, even to take a phone call with him, with one of his vendors. We had a great time. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for a safe drive back. I'm grateful that these are write-offs. Good morning, Jessica. There she is. Boom. This person, lovely person, floating around the world doing good stuff. If you haven't seen what she's been up to with her garden and everything she and her husband are up to, you guys got to follow Jessica. So I'm grateful for a safe drive back. We accomplished so much. I'm grateful that we were able to do the show from the road, at least a few episodes for those who checked in. No, we couldn't do all the streaming and all the fun stuff, but we made do. And that's what it is we do. I'm grateful for all that we've accomplished on this road trip. I also was able to take my great pause, and we're going to talk about what the great pause is. And this is one of your tools for transitioning from this level to the next. I was able to take my own great pause, and I was reflecting on all the things that we have done, and it just blew my mind. So I'm grateful for that this morning. Real quick, Jessica says, you're so kind and welcome back. And I'm excited to be back. This show is one of the absolute joys in my life. I've heard back from so many of you, not just like, hey, Grant, I've seen you, let's do business, but hey, Grant, I watched your show and it said something to me. I was talking to somebody last week and they're like, hey, man, I missed your show. And I didn't even know this person watched the show. We had a phenomenal time together talking about that. Last but not least, I'm grateful for a new season of leveling up. Is this your season to level up? I want to hear about it in the comments. How are you leveling up? What is the new level? Can you articulate it? Do you know what you have to do to win at that level? We're going to be talking about that. That's part of today's lesson, is how we're going to level up and how we can actually break the bonds of our success at this level to take the successes of the next level. So we're going to be covering that today. That's what I'm grateful for. What are you grateful for? Root jumps in, my man, coming in clutch as always. He's grateful for the love people are giving me. Also for this show is back. Yes, we're back. I'm grateful for you being a fan of the show, Root, and I'm grateful that you're out there hustling. If you guys don't know, I brag on this guy. I brag on Jessica. I brag on these guys all the time. But Root is out here in the makerspace at our local co-working space, Catapult. Marissa and I visited several co-working spaces over the last month. Catapult still just absolutely crushes these. He's been using the makerspace to build his drone. He's got this drone that looks like a B-1 bomber or something like that. It's a gorgeous plane or drone. And he's been getting a lot of love. He's been in the newspapers, getting a lot of coverage. So here's a man who is a true success story, as so many of you are. His are just visible right now, so show him love. Celebrate, because you attract what you celebrate. Isn't that right? You know that and I know that. We attract that which we celebrate. We repel that which we don't celebrate, that which we're jealous of. So go celebrate those people around you who are in the public eye. Your time will come too. But celebrate those people who deserve it. So anyways, that's what we got for our gratitude. What are you grateful for? Let me hear in the comments. If you check in later, I'd love to hear from you later as well in the comments what you're grateful for. Let's talk about other news. News that elevates your brain. News that takes you outside of your normal. You get into your ruts. I know you do. You get into this rut of what you're reading. You get into this cycle of reading the same stuff, listening to the same news stories. Hopefully we're going to break the back of that with this piece of other news. In art news, reading novels enriches your life. That's true, but we're talking about actually enriches your life. Let's talk about this. A bookmark illustrated by Vincent van Gogh has been discovered after 135 years. So you see, 135 years ago, Van Gogh was reading a novel, a fiction novel, called The History of a Peasant, or I'm going to butcher my French, Histoire d'un paysan. So I'm going to totally butcher that. Whoever speaks French, please correct me. This is an illustrated novel by Emile Erckmann and Alexander Chatrain, who details the French Revolution from the perspective of a peasant in Alsace. Now, Van Gogh mailed this book to a friend, Anthony van Rappard, and he was a good friend of his, and he said, I think this will really enrich your life. Now, though these guys were very good friends, and though Van Rappard often sat for some of Van Gogh's paintings, they actually had a falling out in 1885 when Van Rappard criticized a lithograph, The Potato Eaters. Don't criticize your buddy's artwork, man. You're going to lose a friend. You don't want to do that. So now the book has been on display at the Van Gogh Museum. But when someone lifted it up, out slipped a bookmark. And on this bookmark were 3 illustrations of peasants that Van Gogh had sketched while he was writing or reading this book. He sketched the bookmark himself, and that bookmark went with the book to his friend. And 135 years later, to the pleasure of those who are fans of Van Gogh, new pieces, even though they're sketches, they're worth something. So if you care to know more, of course, here is your link. Boom. A link with a little bit of backstory of the drama of Van Gogh's life, that you had little friendship dramas there, but also that you never know. And Van Gogh doesn't know. Van Gogh doesn't care. Van Gogh is dead somewhere. Doesn't really care that his bookmark is making an impact, but it is. And this is why you should be a producer and a creator, not a consumer, or at least a producer and a creator more than a consumer, because you never know what might just be a little sketch in your life might mean something to someone. Now, that sketch obviously means something because of the vast body of quality work that Van Gogh eventually produced. And obviously the drama of his own life and the stories behind that. And obviously art culture has made him a big deal. But you never know. This is why I produce so much. This is why I write so many books. This is why I do so many shows. This is why I'm working on my next manuscript. This is why we build so many businesses. You never know what's going to impact people's lives. And remember the mission. What is the mission, my friends? Igniting lives of explosive significance. You never know what piece of work that you're working on, what effort you're giving will turn into that explosive significance in someone else's life. So anyways, that's what we're learning from Vincent van Gogh's hidden bookmark sketches. Let's talk about astronomers turning galaxies into magnifying glasses. Yes, scientists recently, we've known about how we can use gravity wells to make sound kind of go around a planet and go further than it would We know how we've done this with radio signals. And recently, scientists have been asking themselves, can we do this at the scale of kabillions of light years? And that was a good question because they've discovered that they can turn clusters of galaxies into magnifying lenses. Recently, they've been using what's known as gravitational lensing to study a further galaxy, 10.7 billion light years. That's how far light can travel in 10 billion years. Man, these numbers are crazy scale, right? So NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, in partnership with Dr. Sonia Sharma, has basically been studying galaxy CSWA 128. And normally this galaxy would just be a tiny blur with all the light and radio frequency they can gather. They could only make a blur of this galaxy. But Dr. Sharma says our gravitational lens is a cluster of galaxies roughly 3 billion light years away. This means nearly 2 or 3 times further away, or 3 or 4 times further away, they're able to use as light and sound warp around this massive galaxy cluster. It's not just a single galaxy. If you think of the Milky Way as one galaxy, a galactic cluster is dozens, hundreds, or thousands of galaxies 3 billion light years away. Can you get this scale? Can you comprehend this? This is huge. The scientists then developed a sophisticated AI algorithm that can accurately interpret the spectroscopic information of the targeted galaxy with light and radio frequencies pulled from the observatory in Hawaii. This is huge. And she finally says it will help in the mission to interpret the mechanisms that govern how stars are made, and thus how galaxies evolve, and thus how the universe is formed. So it sounds like it's highfalutin. Why would you bother with this? There's so much knowledge. The science of the algorithm itself is powerful. The science of gravitational lensing itself is very powerful. But what the data you're also gathering is huge. If you care about absolutely mind-melting scale of science, boom, there's your link right there. I'm going to put it in the comments. Check that out. It's very interesting, but I really derive from this how little do we know. I mean, we know a lot and we interact with a lot, but as a species, how little do we know and what are its implications? And I'm always curious, what are the spiritual implications of that level of scale? That's your bit of other news. Let's talk for just a quick moment before you head off to work. The process that I recommend you do as you transition from busyness at this level to actually effectively taking the next level. I'm facing it, and I'm going to share with you how I'm winning at life, but really how that actually means I'm failing at least the next level. Let's talk about it. So, we can all agree that I'm winning at life. You see, we generally won the system, and bear with me. I'm being facetious. Bear with me. You see, Marissa and I, when we were young and married, we were not well-to-do. We were relatively poor. Not poor, but we weren't wealthy, and we had no real income. We had moved to the Dominican Republic. We had self-funded. We were employable. We could work hard. But we didn't really have a lot of cash. We didn't have a lot of prospects. We didn't have a lot of money. In fact, we were full of a lot of fear back in 2013 when we moved back from the Dominican Republic to the States. But we began to build our businesses from scratch. And it was a rough go. You see, Marissa was working very hard as a scuba dive instructor, which up to that point, she really thought and felt it was her dream and might even still feel that way, though she loves hiking now. So one's going up, the other's going down. But she was working really hard, and and she was frustrated with commuting in and out of Orlando while I was trying to build our business and really not making much progress. I had done a little bit of coaching and training back then, and I had even sold a little bit. But the frustrations that Marissa brought home, she never really made me feel guilty, but I did feel guilty for that. I felt guilty. I felt lost. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I felt a lot of shame. I was a good coach. I was a good trainer. I'm really good with people. I've always been very good with people, but I really didn't know what I was doing. But then suddenly I made a sale. We sold some coaching, and then we sold some websites, and then we sold some more websites. And the dopamine hit of going from 2 sales to 4 sales to 10 sales, the dopamine hit was huge. Hey, I learned that when in doubt, sell something. When you don't know what's going on, sell something. I could then bring this cash home and show my wife, look what I did. And then she would say, okay, but are you going to build a website? I'm like, I guess. So we started building websites. And I really developed an addictive habit that when I was overwhelmed, when I wasn't sure what to do, go sell. And that's a part of the brain known as the orbitofrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex says things like, well, you should build an infrastructure, and you should build systems, and you should hire people, and you should only sell that which you can deliver. The orbitofrontal cortex says, boom, the last time we did this, it felt good, so go do it. So when stress hits, your brain moves out of the prefrontal cortex, out of the wisdom area, and moves into the orbitofrontal cortex. It moves into the thing that you got your last real dopamine hit. And this, my friends, is procrastination. This is where procrastination comes from. So I wanted life because when other people were procrastinating with movies and work avoidance, my procrastination, my dopamine centers was anchored to selling. Hey, that's not a bad procrastination. When others binged and avoided work, I was selling. I was selling websites. I was selling business coaching. I was selling training and investments and more. My habit had become selling. My positive neurotransmitters were anchored to selling. And this is why I say I won at life. You see, the first year we had about a 45% growth year over year. The first year we didn't do much at all. The second year we did about a 45% growth year over year. The third year we did about a 28% growth year over year. And in the last 12 weeks, I just calculated it, we did a 25% growth over the previous 12 weeks. Tracking really good. So my procrastination, my addiction is selling. And that's awesome. That's why, facetiously, that's why I win at life, my friends. Except, here's the challenge. Here's why this is not good. Here's why I don't really win at life. You see, I now have employees and bookkeeping and performance reviews and R&D and marketing, and production and troubleshooting, because I'm still the most skilled guy on the team when it comes to the technical end. And everything we've ever said is MSPBA, marketing, sales, production, bookkeeping, and admin, MSPBA. MSPBA is the spark, state of the spark for IDM framework for your business. You have to have at least one system and everything MSPBA. Now, when I start to get overwhelmed and I've got all these things I've listed on my plate, and stuff is getting dropped, clients are getting dropped, what am I going to do? I'm going to move out of my prefrontal cortex, and my prefrontal cortex says, Grant, build systems. Grant, hire people. Grant, train people. Grant, make sure you're equipping your team. Grant, make sure you're marketing. Grant, make sure you're doing your bookkeeping and handing out your profit first. But when I start to get overwhelmed, all this success of me winning at life, my habit to procrastinate, because you're going to procrastinate and I'm going to procrastinate. So how do I procrastinate? Sales! And this is why I build more of the same problem. You see, I did a humble brag there, not so humble brag. I actually said a minute ago, I did 25% over the last 12 weeks in growth. 25% growth in the last 12 weeks. Now, that doesn't say a lot because, hashtag COVID. But if you have any seasoning in your salt and pepper beard or your salt and pepper hair, if you've done business for a minute, you know that means my systems are 25% or more overloaded. I don't have 25% more labor. I have 25% more work. So I'm just adding to the stress. This is why I say facetiously, I've won at life, but I haven't, because I start throwing myself at things and I just start selling. I can't help but starting to sell. Now, let's make things a little more challenging and share with you why in one level of success, me having anchored myself that my procrastination, when I want to avoid work, I'll pick up the phone and sell something. I'll take someone to lunch and sell something. Man, I've won! Except Now I'm a partner on several companies, which has always been the goal. Now I'm a partner on several companies, but guess what? They don't need me to sell. They need me to advise for my strategic mind. Now I have this show, and you don't need me to sell, but you need me to study and focus on being clear when I'm doing my teaching. You deserve that. Now I have real estate investments, and the real estate investments don't need me to sell. They need me to research and decide and buy and network for cash for my next purchase. I don't need to sell. Now I'm writing a book, and the book doesn't need me to sell. The book needs me to sit down and freaking write. Now I have coaching clients, and my coaching clients don't need me to sell them. They need me to be my absolute best and centered for listening and ideas and solutions for when I'm sitting with them. You see, what was awesome at one scale, my procrastination, my habit. Some people snort Coke, I go sell. Some people go grab their 50th cup of coffee. I also grab my 50th cup of coffee. But with some people eat potato chips and dodge the work and take another nap and party all night, I sell. But that's hamstringing me because as my workload grows, I need to level up. What I'm facing is what all of you are facing, really, when you're trying to level up, and that is habits. And some could say bad habits, but even good habits at this level could be bad habits at this level. And even though I may or may not have a better excuse than others since my habit of procrastinating is selling, I still, like anyone, find it very difficult to listen to my prefrontal cortex to do the new activities that my orbitofrontal cortex intervene with. Because what I need to be is not a sales guy. What I need to be is not a website guy. What I need to be is not a developer. What I need to be is not even a business manager. What I need to be is an executive at the next level. When I think about Tony Robbins and a lot of these guys who are managing billion-dollar empires, they really have two roles. One, be the voice of the mission, which is what Tony does when he does his live shows, which is what he does when he sits with people, but also to be an executive, a CEO. And I am being challenged right now. I don't know about you, but I am being challenged right now that I need to be an executive over our businesses, amongst our partners. I need to be supporting our partners, our teams, our employees as an executive, not a salesperson. So I am falling victim to my habits. And even though it's good habits, it's not so hot. So how do we solve this? It's a new season. It's a season of transition where simply shifting a few of these habits won't cut it. I need an entire shift in how I view myself and how I respond to my requests and stress. I need a shift in habits, but more than that, I need an entire shift in paradigm. Now, if you've been here, and when we start our business, we have a lot of these shifts. We go from being like a plebe and it's just us wearing all the hats. We might employ people or delegate some to vendors or 1099s. We might do some of this, but at some point, we have to make a mega leap where we shift out of working in the business and start working on the business. You might be facing this yourself. Have you felt this way? Have you felt overwhelmed? You saw a glimmer where you could become a business owner, not just a self-employed. You become a business owner, not just your own worst boss and your own worst employee, but actually being a business owner where you're delegating. And then suddenly a wave of success, sales, comes in, and now you're sucked right back into the trenches. You lose an employee, you're sucked right back into the trenches. How do you solve this? How do people do this? How do they make the transition? How do you jump from not just selling? How do you decide which of the activities that you're overwhelmed with should selectively fall to the wayside while you give your energy to more important CEO tasks? How do you move your reactiveness to the stress from the OFC, the orbital frontal cortex, to the PFC, the prefrontal cortex? How do you make that transition? How can you still move towards your goals while still managing the responsibilities and the demand of the clients while actually making huge steps forward to your next level? My answer to this is the great pause. You have to take what I call the great pause. Now, real quick, what is the great pause? The great pause is the breath of space between the explode significance phase and the radiate purpose phase. You see, your paradigm needs to shift. How you view yourself. When you say, when I'm stressed out, I eat chips. When I'm stressed out, I watch shows. You need to switch that. When I'm stressed out, I get to the work. When I'm stressed out, I make decisions and move on those decisions. When I'm stressed out, I exercise and clear my mind. When I'm stressed out, I do healthier things. There has to be a whole paradigm shift. And that happens in the radiate purpose phase. Spark your vision, ignite your success, explode your significance, radiate purpose. Write your goals, get successes that win, make it about others, take a pause and connect with yourself, reconnect with God by reconnecting with yourself. There's a whole internalization that happens in the radiate purpose phase. A true radiate season is about reconnecting with yourself. And the great pause is the space between explode significance and radiate purpose. It's the space of mind and body, your mental health and your physical health, needed to enter a radiate purpose season. You see, a radiate purpose season is highly internalized. But how do you go from high gear, igniting success is doing sales and building out a business, and then exploding significance, paying out profits, making it about people, training your people, delegating to your people? Your brain's going a mile a minute. Mine is. How do you make the shift from that downshift all the way down to neutral or first gear to radiate purpose and to be internal and to internalize things? This is why we call it a winter season. You see, the great pause is the calm after the storm, after the busyness of igniting successes and exploding significance. Before you commit to radiating purpose, I recommend you take a great pause. Your brain still wants to race. Your brain still wants to solve problems. Your brain still, like Marissa and I, we derive total joy and total pleasure from solving problems. But at some point, you have to step outside of this. Marissa did this once when she went to Vipassana for meditation. I've done this in several phases of my life. With semester at sea was a big one. And though I was traveling, I spent a lot of time internalizing. How do you pause the racing, problem-solving mind long enough to get a new paradigm, a new perspective? And it's the great pause. So let's talk about this. A few quick things about the great pause. The things that I recommend you do dramatically. I recommend you actually take the 5 things I'm about to give you. They're things that I do. I recommend that you do them a certain way, but even if you do the minimal, I'll share with you what the minimum one thing is right at the end. I recommend also that you schedule an hour and a half every morning for at least 2 weeks. This is the doctor's prescription. You ready? Dr. Grant here is going to tell you that if you are so overwhelmed, but you have your hand grasping for the next level and it's touching the very edge of it, it's grabbing the edge and it's like, oh, I'm almost there. And you keep getting sucked back into the trenches. If you're feeling that, the doctor is prescribing to you an hour and a half of the following 5 things every day, 7 days a week for the next 2 weeks. This is what I call the great pause. Schedule this in. Number 1, you've heard me say it once, you'll hear me say it a million times. Meditate. Meditation is the thing that pulls you out of the panic orbital frontal cortex going into procrastination because I'm just too stressed to make any solid decisions. Meditation pauses that, and your brain energies literally go back to the prefrontal cortex. Even just 10 minutes between tasks. When you finish a task, don't just binge and hit next on your Netflix show that's playing in the background and go to the very next task because I'm hustling. Stop. Go get a cup of water, come back and meditate. Meditating, even for 10 minutes, is all the gap you need to reduce your stress enough to make a better decision. The decisions you should be making at the next level, as opposed to the decisions you usually make, just grinding it out on the lower level. This will help you in the moment, but it will also help you begin to slow your mind down in general as you prepare for the radiate season. Number 1 is meditate. Number 2, review your wins. Write down the things you have accomplished for which you are absolutely most proud and grateful. Marissa and I, on our drive back from Kansas, I took a minute and I was journaling one morning at all the things that we had done that I'm proud of, sincerely proud of. I'm proud of the people I've served. I'm proud of the things I've done. Review your wins and hey, here you go. Write them in a journal. Number 2 is review your wins. Number 3, journal. Write in your stinking journal. I cannot tell you enough. To a person, the only single activity that every successful person interviewed has in common is not their backstory, not how much money they started with. It's they journaled and self-reflected. Write in your journal. And if you don't know what to write, here you go. Write down your new goals. What am I thinking now versus my old goals? And have that conversation with yourself on paper. Write down which of the old goals you even still want. You might not want the old goals. This is where you actually realign with yourself. That's often what you need, your true self. Your true self works at this level, at this level, and at this level. Your true self is pure and it wants what it wants at all levels. And the journal is where you actually re-meet and reacquaint yourself with your true self. Number 1, meditate. Number 2, review your wins. Number 3, journal. Number 4, read books. Return to reading books. And I do recommend physical books because there is science about 3-dimensional spatial memory of the things you read. We have a much lower memory for the things we read digitally. There's massive science for the things we read physically because of 3-dimensional spatial memory. During a radiate season, which you're heading into, you're going to do an enormous amount of personal study. You're going to be studying spiritual things, internal things, skill things, things for the future. But you may not know where to start. When you are in busy mode, when you're in ignite mode and you're in explode significance mode, you are studying for your industry. You're studying for problem solving. You're studying for the latest, greatest thing. But when you're starting to be contemplative and reflective, you don't really know. Should you study business? Should you study your craft or management? Honestly, for those of you who are reaching the next level, I recommend you actually stop studying your craft as much as studying, actually delegating and managing other people. At some point, you will not be the most skilled person in your business. Even if you're a boutique craft business, if your business is craft, eventually you're going to become a master or a grand master, and you're going to be delegating to your apprentices, even in a craft-based business. Read or study. So when you don't know what to read or study in your radiate season to build up towards that, literally start reading books now. You'll put down and not finish some of those books. That's okay. You'll pick up new books. You'll completely resonate with some. In fact, I even recommend that you pick up fiction, but just start. It will cultivate your internal tuition, knowing what you should be reading and what you probably shouldn't be reading as you build towards your radiate season. Number 4 is read. Number 5 is simply this. This is the simplest one. Please do this. Please exercise. I'm going to get real spiritual. Please exercise. Listen, the great pause is a healthy break from the busyness, and it is great for you. Exercise helps you tear away. It's literally the best excuse for, hey, I can't take a call. I'm literally running. You might even put your phone down. If you have not worked out in a long time, I might remind you, it is plenty of time to think and reflect. And don't make it about exercising. Make it about commit to the exercising, but making it about getting away from the screens. I'm pointing this. I got 2 screens right here. I've got my camera here, my mic here, my 2 screens here. And all of these draw me in. There's an energy to them. They actually make me want to be productive, which is why I have this set up. But I need to literally walk away from this and around the screens and out the door to get perspective, because my internal compass is the thing that leads me, not this. This is how I do the work, but this doesn't dictate the work. The screens, my calendar, my inbox, your emails to me should not dictate what my busyness is. That's for this low level of thinking. That's for amateur hour. CEO hour times out and says, that's interesting. Let me take a pause. Exercise is a great way to get away. In fact, I'm even thinking about incorporating an afternoon workout literally to the gym in the middle of the afternoon, so I have a pattern interrupt. And so that I'm thinking about the best thing to do and do it in such a way that I get back to the office in time, that before dinner, I still have a little bit, a half hour to an hour, to execute on things that I just know I should have done earlier, but I procrastinated them in my old thinking. Jessica says, yeah, feeling the radiate season. I'm absolutely feeling the radiate season. And honestly, Jessica, I personally am coming into my own radiate season. I know it in a big way, which is why I'm taking the great pause. So again, those 5 items. Number 1, meditate. I cannot tell you enough. Meditate, meditate, meditate. Number 2, review your wins. Write them down in your journal. Write down the things you've accomplished that you're grateful for, that you are proud of. You should be proud of your story. And if you're not, you need to start writing a new story. Make new decisions. Number 3, journal. Write in your stinking journal. And if you don't know what to write, reflect on old goals that have stuck around and new goals that have replaced the old goals. Number 4, read. Start reading books. Pick up anything and sit down. You'll see how fidgety you are. Sit down and push through. Read for 15 minutes. Read for 30 minutes. Finish a book. It's its own to the monotonous work, the trenches work. Even if that's what you do, you'll come back with extra leverage, new ideas, greater clarity. I cannot tell you how often I have struggled with in the website company, a tier 3 tech support issue that I struggle with for like an hour and a half. I get up, I go get a drink of water, I get outside, get some fresh air, do some jumping jacks, come back and realize I could have just delegated this. I could have outsourced this to my 1099. I could have delegated it to someone else who knows this thing better, and I get rid of it in 10 minutes or less because I stepped away. Those are my 5 keys. And I was winning at life, but I'm not now. Why? Because I'm taking the new level of executive ownership over our mission, not just our businesses. When I talk about being an executive, think about this word. We think about CEO and it sounds like I'm a big dog. No, I'm the one supporting everyone. I'm not the big dog. I'm the support system. And executive means I am the one executing. And I am required to be the chief executor. And the chief executor has to select with great care the things that gets their attention. And I recommend you do the same. My 5 keys: meditate, review your wins, journal, read, and exercise. Set an hour and a half aside every morning for 2 weeks. This isn't even 75 hard. This is an hour and a half moderate to hard. And if you do this, the doctor says, I guarantee you're going to feel a massive amount of clarity. Listen, my friends, this is all I have for you today. I want to encourage you before you jump off, though. Please go out there and make it an extraordinary day. Listen to your intuition. Listen to your heart. It is calling you to a new level. And in order to do that, I heard sacrifice. The definition of sacrifice is this: letting go of things of a lower nature to make room for things of a higher nature. You will drop plates. But don't drop plates just because you're stressed. Drop plates, and instead of letting them drop, from an intentionality perspective, grab them and set them down. People won't always be happy with you. They won't be happy with all of the outcomes, but you have to make room. The only way to make room is to make space in your heart and in your mind and in your body. Listen, go out there and make an extraordinary day. If you need help and support, obviously, check stateofthespark.com. If you ever want to talk about this stuff, we have a place to talk about this stuff, the Facebook Goals and Gratitude Group. But no matter what you do today, please remember the mission. Remember this. Go ignite lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a fantastic day. Take care.